Hey there, welcome to the Reinsurance Podcast, the place where we dive into all things reinsurance, the coolest part of insurance. We're your hosts, Jared and Ben, a couple of ex-practitioners who loved the industry so much we founded Supercede to tackle some of its biggest headaches. And we're here to share our insights and stories with expert guests as we uncover what's really going on in the industry.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here on the Reinsurance Podcast, this time with a special guest. Welcome, Yasmin Esdale from Hiscox. How are you?
Lovely to be here. I'm very good, thank you. I feel very honoured to be sitting in the seat that the hard market is sat in.
Yeah.
Oh, this is true.
Very recently, right?
Very recently.
Very recently. And the one thing I got from that was, I can't believe you don't have Instagram.
Yeah, it's still a thing. In fact, I tried to use Jared's Instagram prior to that episode to make sense of how it works, and I got stuck and had to call Jared several times.
My favorite anecdote was after that, we were trending quite a lot, and we were getting a lot of things shared to us, and Ben sends me a link saying, can you open this Instagram link someone sent to me so I can comment on it? I was like,
this is a true
there's a hack here if you just
God.
have your own Instagram.
You
Now's
didn't
the
do
time.
it, actually, did you?
No,
Yeah,
I only saw this a couple days ago.
Somebody sent it to me, and they were like, look at this, I found you on Instagram. I have no idea what that is. It could be anything.
Then
Could
it's
be.
time.
Yeah.
Listen, I
It's
can help
time.
you on here.
But then, so Livy, our colleague on the business dev side, is also trying to sell me TikTok simultaneously. So
Oh, that's a step
do I
too
have to do
far.
it in one order in particular?
It's a big leap into the unknown, TikTok. I feel like if you've not done Instagram before, to then go for TikTok, like that's pretty bracing.
Drinking
isn't it?
through a fire hose at that point, I suspect.
Listen, insurance TikTok though. Sorry
There
to jump right
is.
in, but like
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
kicking
yeah.
off.
And we had
Yeah.
Sam on the podcast as well.
We did.
So
It's kicking off though. Honestly, there's a big following out there, and lots of, I don't want to call them kids, but young adults are wanting
Yeah.
to know about career options. They
Yeah.
find insurance that you wouldn't think of it though, would you?
Yeah.
You wouldn't think of it.
Well, we'll talk on a huge array of subjects in today's session or episode, but you're right. Like when you look at talent being one of the biggest challenges this industry faces, like how do you get people to be aware of this industry? And it can't be like at the grad fair when they're leaving university. It has to be something sooner than that. The sort of adage is like you either fall into this or you were sort of born into it with family. Like social media is the route upon which we can attract people, I think. So it's
which recovers us to our typical opening question. How did you fall in or be born in?
God, I hope-
be born in insurance.
I hope
love
you
that.
say a TikTok. One day that will be the answer.
I love that. So I actually started insurance at 17, so I was fresh
Very
out
cool.
of school, and I feel like I was taken from the relative comfort of GCSEs and sort of flung into a call centre environment. And that's kind of not where you want to start off, but I feel like you learn a lot from there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if either of you have worked in that sort of environment before.
Not yet, but I've got lots of family who are near enough to the Admiral head
Stay
office
out.
that they've all worked for
Stay
Admiral
out.
at some point.
Stay out. It is the
Yeah.
trenches,
Yeah.
really and truly. Because what it is, you're dealing with the general public. You're already talking about a grudge purchase, right, on consumer products, motor insurance. People don't want to buy it. They're forced to buy it. And suddenly you're trying to say, like, well, do you want breakdown as well with that? You know, $65.99?
So you're on like a sales side, like a
Yes.
upsell.
Yeah, exactly. And that it's hard work.
Yeah.
It's really hard work. And so I didn't start off in like the glamorous side of reinsurance or Hiscox. I started off like on the phones, hammering the calls, just trying to sell policies.
Yeah.
Getting that wrong fuel cover out there.
Oh my
But
goodness. It's
but you
intense.
could not be dissuaded from the industry as a young and impressionable youth in the industry. You're like, there's more to this than just the call center at the Admiral.
There absolutely is. And I feel like if you do start in that sort of environment, you do your time in there, right? Even if you start at a glitzy insurance company or reinsurance company, you start off, doing the admin or copying files, and you have to do your time. And there's a reason why you start off there. But it's all about trying to figure out like what's the next step, like where are you getting to, etc. And I knew there was something there. I just couldn't figure it out, like how to get to it, right?
Were you in London when you were on the retail side, or did
So
you come
I-
to London after that? Or?
So I only actually came to the city in 2019. So I feel like a bit of a late
okay.
bloomer
Yeah, yeah.
because the city is its own sort of like ecosystem when it comes to insurance, right?
Yep.
The epicenter of it all.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I was a late bloomer. I came in 2019. I was like, oh my God, just looking around, like big eyes, like all these big buildings. And it's when you realize the sheer volume of money that comes through the city and flows out, you're like, I want a piece of that. I want a piece of that. So I spent 10 years in regional brokerages all around Southwest London. I did like a variety of sales roles, commercial products, construction, mid-market, consumer products. And then I came to the city in 2019 and I've been here since. I love it. I love it.
And what was that transition out of like the first experience that you had, but still being curious about so much more the industry had to offer? And like, how did you explore the other options that were available to you? What was that transitional journey like?
I think it's quite hard when you're going from a regional brokerage in the UK to the city. It's like chalk and cheese. And you wouldn't think so. And I've got lots of friends who work in international markets who don't quite understand how different it really is. And I think it's quite hard actually to break in from a regional market into the city. And so I was incredibly fortunate that I started off like with the CII. I started out at networking events. I started out with mentors who knew more than I did. And I sort of had like a helping hand along the way. Like not everyone gets that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's easy when you're in the city, forgetting what it's like for people who are outside of it.
And you're a brilliant spokesperson to have with us on the show. So perhaps if any of our listeners aren't familiar with it, what is the CII and what role has it played for you? And, you know, I know you're even more involved now as well. So do share, you know, what is the CII for people who don't know
Absolutely.
about it?
So Chartered Insurance Institute, CII, it's one of our biggest professional bodies in insurance, and it's the professional standard. So we use them to do our exams, especially if you're in retail insurance or consumer products. You'd use them to get like a professional understanding of the product of insurance, you know. And so it's a great outfit because in addition to doing the exams, they also do a number of other things like networking events, they do talent programs, they do outreach programs. And so being embedded in the CII has been so beneficial for me. So I'm one of their underwriting board members at the moment, which is great because I get to set the CPD for 9,000, you know, global underwriters. So that's awesome. And it's so far off where I thought I'd be from 17, you know, on the phone, screaming. I wasn't screaming, just to clarify. I was being screamed at. It's like chalk and cheese, really.
Yeah. Well, and you get exposure, like the benefit of those types of systems and programs and organizations is it opens you up to like the world of opportunities that sit within it. It's not just motor insurance at a single carrier. It's like, oh, there's these complex, we'll talk more about like the complex programs you work on now, but there's this huge array of things that this industry gets involved in. And you realize, as we talked about in super early episodes, like everything you see and experience in the world has an insurance linked element to it, right? Yes. Whether that's supply chain stuff or the buildings or the properties or the risk of casualty if someone were to be injured somewhere. And as you begin to realize that, you get this really sort of interesting like moment upon which it's like, I could do so many interesting things in this space, and you begin to explore and look out and seek out those things that are in fact super interesting or you make you curious about it. Reinsurance being one of them that we talk about a lot, but also the other sectors that you've gotten yourself involved with.
Yeah,
tell us about schemes, because that's something we've not ever talked about before.
Schemes, really? Okay, so I work in schemes at the moment at Hiscox, which is a fancy name for delegated authority. So it's portfolios of business, and like you were sort of alluding to earlier, it's just bigger.
Yep.
It's bigger, it's more interesting, there's more to it, there's like a unique proposition behind it. So for those who don't know, a delegated authority binder or an arrangement for us in retail is effectively a portfolio of similar risks. They're all done together. Either we work with like an MGA partner or we partner with a broker to build something truly unique. And I think the differentiator for it is that there is like a USP to the cover. So the coverage might be unique. The wording might be on the broker's wording, for example. The offering is unique. And I think we can't be complacent to the fact that there's commoditization, you know, that's happening right now. I feel like 10 years ago, I was saying you'll never see a commercial product on an aggregator website. And now, oh my God, you can do, you know, businesses, hundreds of millions of pounds of turnover on an e-trade platform. That's crazy. You know, commoditization is here and it's happening. And the pace of change is really quick. So when we talk about schemes and portfolios, we talk about building something that's unique for the broker and it gives them that advantage in the market. So that's why I think schemes are here to stay. It's an interesting part of our business. It's a core part of our business at Hiscox, but it's not something a lot of people know about, which is surprising.
Well, it touches on like a central element to the insurance process as well as reinsurance, but this direction of distribution, right? How do you understand that clients need the best and build and sort of structure products to solve for those needs? And because the broker oftentimes is so close to that client and that relationship and they understand that client more intimately, it's sometimes in a lot of ways more effective for them to work alongside a capital partner, capacity partner, to help them structure those products that then they can distribute with the network that they've already built out. So it becomes a really effective way for the capital to get risk, but for the broker to also solve for client needs. So it sort of is a really effective way to get products into the market.
Absolutely. And we like to say that the propositions in our schemes are broker-led. And we truly mean that, because we feel the broker has the expertise, the broker has the book of business, the broker knows the client intimately, and they're the ones really to put the proposition together. So it's almost like we take a step back and we're the capacity provider and we're here to provide support when you need it, but they are broker-led propositions. And I think we're going to see a lot more of them in the future. I think there is a place for them in our market, especially against the backdrop of commoditization. They're here to stay, you know?
How do you go about assessing a new program or a new scheme? Like if a broker comes to you and they're like, here's what we're thinking about, like oftentimes, especially now with like tech MGAs and similar, like they can come from it in any angle. It could be a brand new company with no track record. It could be a company that's done this a number of times in different geographies. Like how do you begin to assess and evaluate, should you support this program or not? How should you help price it? What does that journey look like?
Absolutely. So I think it depends on the carrier, depending on what their appetite is, what their reinsurance appetite is, and how comfortable they are taking on a new risk. From our point of view, you know, preference is to work with an established broker who knows the market intimately and comes with a book of business. But that's sort of like the gold standard, and you're not always going to get that. And so it's for us to try and innovate and stay ahead of the curve. And then it comes down to a case of, well, how well do you know your market? You know, what are your credentials here, and what makes you think that you're able to bring this sort of business in? And then we go through that process, and that's how you start gauging, you know, underwriting appetite. You start gauging how this looks over a 1, 2, 5 year plan, and you can start building out something like really unique.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I guess crucial to all of this, presumably, is relationships.
Yeah.
And I understand you've been building those here, there, and everywhere, and particularly most recently on a insure trek of some kind, hiking away. Well, tell us about that and what you got up to there.
Oh my goodness, it was such a whirlwind. Honestly, I don't even know how. Well, I do know how it happened. Peter Blanc came to me several months ago and he said, "We're doing this trek for charity." I thought, great, what charity? Alzheimer's Society, and it's the Insurance United Against Dementia campaign.
Yeah.
Amazing. You're doing a hike. It's like, are you in? Yeah, I said. No hiking experience. I haven't been active in about 2 years. I'm in the worst shape of my life. I was like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. But it was a 5-day trek across the Pyrenees, you know, going all the way from Toulouse to Andorra. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Day one, I'm gasping, I'm on the floor, I'm clearly the weak link. And everyone else has done triathlons, they've done Ironmans, they've done all sorts of things. And oh my goodness, it was honestly the hardest thing I've done.
Yeah.
I was the most exhausted I've ever been in my life, but the people there, amazing. Like such a great group, and they really came together. When I was moaning and everything was too heavy for me, you know, they carried my stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, that's cool. And I feel like when you find good people in the insurance sector, you got to like hold on to them, right?
Yeah.
Like don't let them go.
Yeah.
But it's really hard. We raised over £100,000 for charity,
wow.
which is
Yeah.
big money, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's big money, but it just goes to show the amount of money that flows in and out of our sector.
Yeah.
Like let's divert it and do some good, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess meeting a range of different people with lots of different pursuits is a big part of, you know, finding those good people that you reference. And you also play a big role there as part of the ICANN network, for example. And in general, I think acting as a leader, as a, you know, nominee for women in insurance, and also you've been recognised in some other ways, I think, as well, for the role you've played in diversity and inclusion. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? Insurance is a relationships game. It's even more so in the UK because we're a lot closer together than, say, you know, the States or something along those lines. And I feel like the relationships that you build early doors are the ones that are going to benefit you mutually later on down the line. And so for me, coming into the city in 2019, my focus was like, get out there. You know, start networking, start speaking to people, because these people are going to be helping you along the way. Absolutely, that has been the case for me. It's helped me in my career. It's helped me in my initiatives. It helped me in bringing business into the company. And that's all a great pro.
Yeah.
The downside is lots of people don't get the opportunity to forge those kind of relationships, you know. And so part of my role within ICANN, which is the Insurance Cultural Awareness Network, is engineering these sorts of events, right? Networking events where you can bring someone in who's brand new to the insurance industry. You know, they're the first of their family to be working in the city. Maybe they didn't go to a red brick uni, and within 10 minutes, they're, you know, shaking hands and chatting with the top 4 CEO of brokers. Like, that's cool. That's awesome. It's just giving them that opportunity to forge relationships, start building their network, and then make the most of it, you know, get people on an equal footing.
Yeah.
I guess that works both ways as well. You know, it's an opportunity for those top 4 CEOs to meet people that maybe they wouldn't have typically met in an industry that's been characterized in the past maybe as more of a you know, your nephew is the person that joins the industry rather than somebody who, like you said, you know, they're the first person in their family to join. So exciting to hear, hopefully a broadening of perspectives as well.
Well, it goes both ways, doesn't it? Even I try and think about my 13 years in insurance, and I think, okay, do I really remember what it was like being hammered on the phone by consumers shouting and screaming at me? Well, kind of, but do I really remember it? And that was only 13 years, and we've got people in our industry who've been working for, you know, 20, 30, 40 years. And so you're right, I do think it's almost like an exchange of information between two people, and that's why I think our events are really good. So definitely sign up. Haven't seen you at any.
No.
You got to come along.
Yeah.
You got to come
looking
along.
for the invites.
Yeah, they're really good. And we have, you know, a range of events. Networking events, we've got coffee with the CEO. We bring in a big name CEO. He has coffee with everyone. Speed networking as well. Got some really good events. I'll invite you. You got to come along.
No, definitely. Yeah, sign us up. We're in.
I love it.
We're easy sells. It's not a hiking trip though, so we're good to go.
Oh my gosh, no, never again. Never again. I've done it now.
Yeah, she says she's gonna do next year's. She's gonna do next year's iteration as well.
I'm done.
And have you seen, because we talked a bit about a lot of in-person type events, like how did you find the transition through the pandemic to sort of more remote initially and now kind of hybrid? Where are we at now? How do you think that will change? Are we equipped as an industry to continue all of the sort of in-person relationship building, or is that changing?
I think the in-person relationship within insurance is more important than ever. It really is. And I do feel quite bad for some of the people that are just entering our industry now, where they feel like they've been robbed of their experience almost. So they're coming in, you know, lots of companies aren't 5 days a week in the office. That's not the norm anymore. Let's be honest and real about it. In-person meetings aren't happening as much as maybe they were before the pandemic. And I do feel quite bad for these people because they're being robbed of the experience to grow, to make mistakes, to engage in person. But this is the new normal, right? And so we've got to make the most of it. I do think that there is an importance, or we should be placing an importance on in-person trading in the city, because we're all here. We're incredibly lucky to be at the epicenter. We're not spread out across God knows how many states, you know, across in the US. We should be making the most of it. And there is a lot of value in forging an in-person relationship. Like I said, these relationships you forge early on in your career are going to benefit you 10, 20, 30 years from now. You know? So this is the time, like, get out there, talk to people, forge those relationships, and do it in person when you can.
Well, and because of the events and things that you run, one of the things that I think people are missing out on is you could always get this, like, very casual mentorship relationships with people in the market, like people who worked in your company or similar. And it's something now that young people in the industry have to work harder at, like using those events as like the introduction to those individuals, but trying to reach out to them, grab coffee when you're in the city more frequently, because you have to work a bit more at it than you would have had to previously. But it allows you, it creates opportunities for you to create those relationships in an environment that's designed to be networking. So you can make those introductions and build that initial interaction, and then drop them an email the next day, be like, oh, it'd be amazing to grab a coffee at some point in the next week or so. You can help do that, where before it was coming out of a meeting and you pop out and you just get that more organic, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, credit to the next generation coming in, incredibly proactive. I know that's a bit of a sweeping statement, but incredibly proactive. And we have a similar sort of thing. I'll meet someone at an event and the next day I'll have a message in my inbox. Great to meet you. You know, if we catch up anytime, like, that would be amazing. I'm thinking, my God, would I have done that? You know, 10, 13 years ago. And I think it's because they know they have to work a little bit harder, because you won't get those organic, you know, by the water cooler moments. You've got to actually work at putting time in with someone. So, you know, hats off to them. I hope they make the most of it, because this is the new normal now, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we're at a stage where, you know, all of us are going through a lot of technological change as well. How do you envisage, you go back to your call center self, are call centers going to continue to exist in the future? Is that still an entry route for young people looking to join the industry? Maybe they've just finished school or otherwise. Or is that all going to be replaced with AI, and actually you've kind of got to find another way in? Will we need a workforce anymore?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question. Like I said earlier, like, the pace of change is so quick. You almost need to be thinking of not tomorrow, but 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. And it's hard to accurately say, you know, where we're going to land. I will say that there is a lot of importance now being placed on those in-person relationships. And those are sort of roles I think are going to be around for an eternity, because people want to speak to people. Right? People want to speak to people. People want to engage with people. When you're looking at it from a strategic level or from a portfolio level, you don't want to deal with automation, you know, or an algorithm. You want to deal with a person. You want to look into someone's eyes and know that they've got you and you've got them. So I do think those sorts of roles are still going to exist. I think that you do need to embrace change, embrace automation, you know, embrace AI and machine learning where it can help you. But at the same time, we've got to be really drilling down into what's important, what's going to stick around, and making sure that we're using it. So even talking about meeting in person, if we're not really pushing for meeting in person, well, we're not to say we can't do everything online and on Teams, and we can't transact all business that way. And suddenly you're eroding away at the thing that makes you special, gives you your USP, and it's that in-person trading.
Yeah, makes sense.
When you think about propositions that land on your desk, are you getting more and more of them that are sort of AI-driven distribution for this, or are you still getting a lot of like the big broking firms coming to you with new schemes to set up, or are you seeing, especially with right now, it feels like everything exhaustingly is like this AI for this thing? Are you getting a lot of startups running like an AI direct model they're looking for you to set up capacity for? Is that something you're seeing more of because of this rise in AI?
I think you see there's obviously been a load of changes recently. Pace of changes is incredibly quick. I think we see a lot of independent brokerages coming to us with propositions. The places where we really shine is twinning with a membership body. And so again, going back to a consumer product, which is fundamentally for a consumer a grudge purchase. And you're trying to take it from a grudge purchase to something they're actually going to love. Now that's hard. Nigel Walsh, I love what he does. And I love his slogan, which is make insurance lovable. That is hard. How do you make insurance lovable? How do you make motor insurance, you know, lovable? And so where we've seen real big success is with our brokerages who've come to us. They say we're twinned with a membership body. We want to offer them capacity. And then suddenly it's not just an insurance product. It's a membership offering, and it's education, and it's help, and it's guidance. And, oh, it's also insurance. And we're seeing real benefit in that. There's real opportunity there.
This members club sort of attitude, join our community of. Do you think that's ultimately kind of just taking us back towards a sort of mutual style feeling? That, you know, obviously you had a lot of the early insurance companies set up around the world were mutuals, and then the private insurance companies sort of maybe a newer model separated from the community. Do you think we'll lean back that way? I know there's some interesting startups and things like Lacquer, for example, who are very community oriented around their cycling memberships.
There are some very interesting propositions out there in the market, and I feel like I have a lot of insight into a lot of them that maybe don't fit our model right now, but in the future they may do. It just depends how quickly we innovate, and depends on how quickly we keep up with the pace of change. I think there's a lot of tech startups right now, that are doing some really interesting things, and they are groundbreaking. They're groundbreaking, but it's finding the right partner, right? The right capacity partner as well, who's equipped to take on that sort of business.
Yeah, makes sense.
What is the role that reinsurance plays as you set up these schemes? Do you have to have the reinsurance like pre-arranged oftentimes? Is it rolling into, if you talk about motor as an example, into just the broader motor book that Hiscox would be buying for reinsurance? Or would you be looking at a relationship and sort of trying to work alongside a reinsurer to sort of back it as well? How do you think about that relationship?
So it depends on the sort of business that we're trying to write. Obviously, if we're taking a portfolio view on something, it's going to be viewed differently as if we're taking on a single risk. So we have a lot more opportunity within schemes and delegated authority to take on things that we might not write in isolation.
Super interesting. Yeah, it's an angle that's always in the back of our minds anyway, of how does the data flow from that original sort of distribution channel through you guys and then ultimately to the reinsurers as part of this,
of course,
this journey.
Like I said, it's exciting though in schemes that we have more opportunity to write things because we're doing it in mass, right? And a big bulk of business is a lot more attractive than one single exposed risk. So that's exciting. That's where the opportunity is. It's just something people don't realize. I say, we write this at Hiscox. They go, you write what? That's not Hiscox. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's schemes. It's portfolios because we write a big book of business.
Yeah. Have you seen that affected much by sort of trends in the reinsurance world? So, you know, we've had a mega shift in, you know, market conditions on the reinsurance end a couple of years ago. And then also a backdrop of, you know, a quite tense geopolitical situation, a sudden revelation that climate change isn't made up, you know, and all sorts of other sort of broader societal things, inflation, interest rate wise, etc., making quite a big impact on the way the world views risk. How does that translate to the thinking of your partners and clients? You know, are they talking about these sorts of things, or are they able to think sort of more narrowly about their specific niche? I'm just curious how much those sort of massive, sort of big picture trends start to impact some of these quite particular propositions.
Yeah, of course. I feel like with the reinsurance market, there is always that trickle down effect, isn't there? Which is going to impact on that day-to-day trading, whether or not it's been a historical book that we've done for 20 years or whether it's been one that we've just taken on. So we do see our clients coming to us and they're proposing new products as well. And a big part of what we do is look to develop schemes that fit what they're trying to get out to the market. And so we have seen a slight shift in terms of the sort of products they want to bring out. And I think that is impacted by, you know, the wider picture at play.
Yeah. Is that, I mean, would I be jumping to conclusions if I said cybery type things, or is it a bit more?
There's a lot of stuff going on at the moment, but that's the interesting part, isn't it? It's thinking about not the risks of today, it's thinking about the risks of the future. And I feel like that's where Hiscox is going to play a really big part.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, and if we go back to like the now the sort of merging of young talent and innovation and technology and relationships and similar, you begin to see, and Ben and I believe quite strongly, this idea that the amount of innovation that will come out of this incumbent group of people in the industry, people who have an idea, they've worked at a big firm and go, there's a gap in the market for this, and they've built an experience up and they have relationships with someone like yourself to get an arrangement around how they can source capacity for it or sort of troubleshoot how they might go to market with it. It creates this really unique melting pot upon which I think we can do some really interesting work in solving things like protection gaps in certain areas or certain products, many of which might be cyber related now, as you rightfully point out. But I think it's those things all coming together, so which will help sort of guide where the industry might go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a personal fan of Incubators, and I love what the Lloyd's Lab do as well, because it's that sort of safe space, not to sound naff, but it's that safe space to really innovate and really push the envelope out and think about what are the risks of the future. And sometimes they're not apparent. Like, who could have predicted the pandemic?
Yeah.
Like, who could have predicted that? Who could have predicted that? And so I feel like those sorts of spaces to innovate, to incubate, amazing. Like, hats off to them. And we need more people like that who are willing to think outside of the box, formulate their ideas, bring them together and really push forward with them.
Yeah, definitely. And thinking of outside the box, I think you've demonstrated to, you know, the global social media sphere how to think outside of the traditional, you know, in-person relationship space. I would love to use some time to get your top tips for other people who maybe have worked in insurance or reinsurance a long time, and maybe, you know, at some point they got LinkedIn and they put some details on it, you know, and then like many profiles we see haven't updated it since they moved jobs last and so on. People are getting the hang of you know, professional social media, I think, with time. How important do you think it is that people use it well, and what would you say its role is going to be in the future?
I feel like LinkedIn and other social media platforms are sort of just adding to that personal relationship. Genuinely, I do feel that. And you know, I enjoy a bit of LinkedIn. I do. I'm guilty of it. But the only reason why I'm on those sorts of platforms is because it benefits me. And it's that two-way street. It's allowing people to get to know you slightly outside of, okay, this is my role and that's it and I'm siloed in it. It's allowing them to have a little glimpse into your life. Not too much. I keep it quite professional on my LinkedIn, and I do that on purpose. But it's allowing them to feel like they're developing a close relationship with me. And the benefit to that is, well, I'm able to have conversations now with prospective clients, and they feel like they know me. Yeah. How amazing is that? And so you've already sort of knocked down one or two barriers of defense, and you're having like a quite genuine, natural conversation, and that's so powerful. I feel like as a minimum, like, your LinkedIn should be up to date. If your LinkedIn is not up to date, like, I'm going to be having words with you, like 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
The second sort of thing that you could look at is making sure you're engaging in things that people you're interested in talking to are sort of posting or getting involved in. And you can garner a lot from going through the information on someone's LinkedIn profile or going through their likes, which feels a bit stalkery, but it's honestly so valuable. You can tell what conferences they're going to, you can tell what articles they're interested in, what topics they're interested in, and it allows you to take that information away and sort of come back prepared and ready. Like, I love it when I have a conversation with someone the first time. They're like, well, tell me about the diversity and inclusion stuff you do at ICANN. How do you know that? We've never spoken before. But they've gone through and they've taken the time to find out things about me, understand what I'm interested in and aligned to, and we started the conversation that way. Like, that's powerful.
Yeah. And do you think, because in the past, as you're very familiar with, one of the main sources of sort of non-firm specific leadership has been like the lectures put on by the CII. You know, you have somebody who's chosen from their peers to come and give their thoughts on a topic, but now you've got this new category of like industry influencer, which I would say you are very much one. You know, you're sort of out there with a voice that a lot of people are listening to. Any thoughts on the emergence of that type of leader and the responsibilities it brings? Is it a Spider-Man, great power, great responsibility scenario, or is it more free to be yourself?
Yeah, it is powerful. It is powerful. I think the one thing to remember is when you're going online, whether you mean to or not, you're a spokesperson for your company first and foremost.
Yeah.
And for these senior leaders or people at exec level, that's powerful because they can connect with employees all over the globe. They might have hundreds of employees that they've never spoken to on an individual basis, but they feel connected in. And that's quite powerful from an employee retention point of view. It's very powerful from an incoming talent point of view. And it's powerful because you're the voice of your company without having to be just your company.
Yeah.
And so there's a number of people who are doing it exceptionally well. And I love seeing their stuff online. You speak to people who are employed by them. And again, some of them have never even spoken with these guys, but they're saying, yeah, great leader. Like, I love working for him. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And they've got that just from their LinkedIn presence and their portfolio,
And
or their profile, not portfolio.
Yeah.
They've got that from their LinkedIn profile, and that's powerful. And so I do think of LinkedIn as this really underutilized tool. And if done right, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at Sam Ridgewell, right?
Yeah. We talked about the others. How would you rank the others in terms of
You need like a leaderboard.
professional and personal usefulness? You know, what's nowadays, because I'm very outdated, as we discussed right at the start of the episode. I'm probably imagining, I still call it Twitter. I don't have Twitter either, but you know, what's out there now that we should be paying attention to? People of the reinsurance industry.
There are a lot of people doing it really well. Like Ola's a great example. Ola Jacob, I love what he does. I love how he's a spokesperson for all the good things. Russell from Swiss Re Solutions, again, he uses his LinkedIn. He's a great voice and face for his company as well. Peter Blanc, we mentioned him earlier, prolific LinkedIn user, but it works. It really does work. And when he had his presidency at the CII, which we spoke about earlier, he was able to reach so many more people than if he'd just been, you know, behind the scenes, not involved, not engaged. So I do think we need a leaderboard.
Yeah. And LinkedIn's the number one platform, you'd say?
Absolutely, 100%. And then we'll get you on TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah, that's second port of call,
baby
right?
steps. But I think, go ahead.
I would say TikTok above Instagram then.
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, Instagram, you've got the memes, haven't you?
You
The
do.
hard market memes,
Yeah.
another Lloyd's underwriter memes. Like, you're really missing out, honestly.
But not Facebook or Meta or whatever it's called. Not Twitter,
used
not
Facebook
X.
in years.
No,
Do you use Facebook?
no, not anymore.
I've not used it in years. It's kind of just
No.
died a death,
Yeah,
hasn't it?
yeah.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Going out of business today.
That's the pace of change.
But I think with social, and as you said, the professional thread of social, it allows these individuals to be authentic and to be accessible, right? Like when you get an email from Russell Higginbotham or something from Swiss Re, it's going to be in the corporate styling and it's going to read very formal and as a pronouncement to the organization upon which he leads. But if you see like something he shares on LinkedIn or makes a comment to someone else's thing and reshares that, like there's an authenticity around, like he was coming into work and saw it and from his phone as like thought this is something that I want to tell people about or highlight. Like it creates that connection to an individual more so than like the very orchestrated, emails that will go out to the company and which most people would receive. Again, the people he works with who get to see a different side of him, but those hundreds of colleagues around the world who have never met him in person might not ever get to experience any of that. And social creates that sort of accessibility point, which I think is really powerful if used well.
Absolutely. I do think there's a level of authenticity towards it. Like I said, it's showing people into a tiny snippet of your life. And don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not going to champion using it like you would other social media platforms. I would never do it. I would never suggest it for anyone else.
It's my breakfast.
Yeah, I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. There is a degree of professionalism about it, but it's allowing people to get that tiny bit closer towards you that really makes it feel authentic and genuine. And those are sort of roles that I think are going to be around in 10, 20, 50, 100 years time because they're real, genuine human roles.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be using ChatGPT to write my LinkedIn. We spoke about this earlier.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm against it.
Yeah. Right when ChatGPT came out, everybody's LinkedIn posts got like way longer and way more like prosaic. And you're like, this you don't talk like this. Like,
Yeah.
and I get it. ChatGPT is cool. It writes cool stuff for you. I wrote a cool poem about reinsurance, but like, write something that you want to write on LinkedIn. Like, if you send everything that you post via ChatGPT and you have it construct your posts, you will lose that authenticity. And I think we as consumers now of this information are very aware of that.
Yeah.
Like, even as you're like perfecting your prompts and similar, like, it doesn't come across as authentic as you might think it does. And so write your own thing, have your own thoughts, and then, right, like, use it for what it's meant to be there for. And I think it can be really powerful.
Our CTO wrote something very laconic the other day and just said, everybody wants to write with ChatGPT, and nobody wants to read anything written by ChatGPT.
Time and place, isn't
Yeah.
there? I think it's perfectly acceptable to use it for company posts and the
Yeah.
like, but I'm very precious about my LinkedIn posts. I really am. I feel like that's my writing. It's almost like my IP.
Yeah.
Your identity.
It is. It's my identity. It's my LinkedIn identity.
Yeah.
The digital manifestation of yourself.
It is.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact that something can take that and replicate it, and it can replicate it really bloody well.
Mm.
Really well. I've seen it myself, you know,
Yeah.
when you feed it all your writing styles, it replicates it to the point where I'm questioning whether I wrote this or not.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm very possessive over my writing, and so I'm not going to be using it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Do you think the kind of voice on LinkedIn, I know you talked about some of the people who are using it really well as leaders, do you think that's going to become like an obligatory part of the day job? Like, do you think we'll ever get to a point where it's on a resume or like on a job description? You know, we're looking for, not that these roles tend to get posted, but we're looking for a new CEO. Part of your responsibility is you must be really good at social media posting, or do you think that's a stretch too far?
I think when you're talking about those very senior positions, like a CEO, for example, a lot of it is about their executive presence.
Yeah.
So it's not just about their decision-making ability and the fact that they're able to innovate between point A and point B. And no, it's about their executive presence as well.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about platforms in which to push out their executive presence, why wouldn't you use social media, right? And I'm sure many of these senior leaders in insurance do have teams at their disposal that can help them get there.
Yeah.
But I do think it's going to be something we see a lot more of in the future because
Yeah.
it's so important, right?
Yeah.
So important.
That's a really interesting idea. So I think historically we've always looked at it as like, just how effective are you in this role or able to deliver in this role? But as more of that impact can be measured by, like, are you able to attract, get engagement from people at different parts of the industry and make posts that are getting reach and similar? Because people have done this for a long time, where like they're recruiting for reality shows or different things, and like they literally will pick candidates based on the amount of followers you have in a social channel can be determinant as to whether you get selected for a reality show or similar, because they know you will bring in an audience. Just the fact that you post, oh, I'm going on whichever show. And will there be a similar professional version of that? I think it will look differently, right? It won't just be like the number of followers, because everyone has way more LinkedIn people than they've ever met in their life. But you'll have a similar maybe element of that, especially as we get a better ability to extract data from these things. Like, what is the reach that they have? What is the engagement they have amongst audiences of this type? It could be a really interesting thing that gets considered into an executive search, for example.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, we're kind of already doing it already.
Yeah.
So when we talk about taking on a broker for a role, we're not taking on a broker because they've got great chat, We're taking on a broker because they have a book of business with them, or they know intimately the market, or they know the main players in the market, or the underwriter. So we already kind of do that, right?
Yeah.
Especially for strategic roles. Again, it's not what you know, it's who you know and what relationships you're able to leverage. So I suppose when we're talking about LinkedIn and social media, it's kind of the same thing. It's just a different platform or playing field. So I think you're onto something there.
Yeah.
You're onto something.
Yeah.
But we're ahead of the curve.
We are.
Yeah. And I think you described it very well, Yasmin, when you said executive presence. That's not a new thing, I guess. We're seeing it in perhaps spaces like, Elon Musk being maybe an extreme example, where, there's a very cultish following of that leader, and it's his communications are largely driven through social media to his following. In insurance and in reinsurance, much similarly, there are these massive names that probably jump to mind when you think about, oh, this person. They write their thoughts on what the world should work like and why, and write very compelling things and speak and give speeches to huge audiences, and everybody stands up and listens when you hear their name.
Yeah, they do.
So just does that transition with the same people into the social media sphere, or did we start to see a change in what it takes?
I should think so. And you've got to think with the leaders are only as good as the people who are following them.
Yeah.
And you'll see time and time again, like big names coming into a company where they've got a lot of pushback and they're not able to do the things they want to do because people aren't behind them. And so for me, it's almost like a similar thing. If you've got a very strong leader at the front, great executive presence, people are engaged with what they're doing, what they're saying, and they want to follow them, then they will. And that's where you see these companies really soar ahead. So I suppose we're talking about the same thing. It's just different platforms, you know, in person versus actually on a social media platform.
And this is interesting actually as well, because you said we're talking about CEOs and things and leading from the front and so on. Yasmin, you're not a CEO yet. However, you're kind of leading already from the middle, right? If you think about
leading from the middle. Wait, I love that.
Most prominent kind of voices at your firm, you're probably up there. So it'd be very interesting to see how firms shift, around their key personalities who might be driving, schemes now, and who knows what in the years to come. But leadership emerging everywhere.
I love that, leading from the middle. I do think it's important. I think it's a really weird feeling going from quite a junior employee to then, I do agree, I'm in the middle now. And like, what does that mean? And for me, it means that, okay, the things that I'm aligning myself with, organization and companies I'm aligning with, like I can benefit them like they're benefiting me. And so for me, I have to be very laser focused in terms of where I'm spending my time, because like I said, they're benefiting, I'm benefiting, which is why I partner with, the CII, and I'm on their board. It's why I do partnerships with ICANN. It's why I'm involved with BIBA, with like the Young Talent Programs, because they're organizations who benefit from my name and I benefit from their platform. And so it's almost like a mutual exchange, right? And I think it's a very powerful position to be in. Leading from the middle.
And as Ben was saying, all the while benefiting Hiscox as well, right? Like the fact that those people come to events and get to know you, like it just builds the power of the brand that you're associated with as well. So it further benefits like all parties involved, because you get this relationship that's compounding in value.
Absolutely, and it's definitely beneficial in terms of those conversations that you're having with clients, from the beginning, and they know about Hiscox and they know my name. Amazing. So our conversation flows very naturally and freely. And, it works in terms of talent attraction as well. I've had people that have joined in at Hiscox and they said, well, we've seen your TikToks. You what? What do you mean you've seen my TikToks? That's mind blowing. I haven't used TikTok in about a year because it's incredibly addictive. But I did this one TikTok, and it was the funniest thing. One of my managers sent me a big box of goodies. And so I'm going through it, and it's like, the leather folder, the pens, the baseball cap. And it's literally just a video of me unboxing it. It's got like 100,000 views.
People love unboxing videos.
And they do. They love them. 100,000. Like, think about 100,000 views. And I got all these messages. Like, what's Hiscox? Like, where are you based? Like, are you in the city? Like, do you have roles? Oh my goodness. Wow. One unboxing video. I didn't even talk through it, I don't think.
Take note, Supercede marketing.
It's crazy though. There's a lot of reach in these sorts of platforms, and there's great benefit to the companies that you're aligned with. It just takes someone to see the opportunity.
Amazing. So what's on, we're coming kind of to the end of time now, but I would love to wrap up with sort of your outlook on what's left on your radar, your menu, your calendar for the sort of next 12 months or so. What are you excited about from here?
I think it's going to be an exciting rest of the year, exciting rest of 2024, to be honest with you. I feel like there are a lot of shifts in the market, and there are shifts that people can take advantage of, and I absolutely will be taking advantage of. Lots of great events going on. And for me, I think it's more about just building my professional network, making sure I'm in the right places, speaking to the right people. And I think the future is bright for insurance. The future is bright. It's an exciting place to be. I love being part of it, and I just want to do more of it,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Very strong ending position. So thank you for joining us on the podcast, Yasmin. It was an absolute delight having you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we'll see you again digitally or in person very soon.
I love that. Absolutely. I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Reinsurance podcast. If you enjoyed our show, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing, preferably 5 stars. For more insights and updates, follow us on LinkedIn and visit our website at supercede.com/podcasts. You'll find the links in the show notes.